This will be a quick demonstration of how to load an image using some of the user interface components mentioned in Chapter 16. And towards the end of the video, I'm going to show you some command line argument stuff mentioned in Chapter 18. So over here, I have a fresh project with only one class file in it. And it's pretty simple, there's not a lot of code, but just a quick walkthrough of what it's doing. So we have our image path, and from that we build a file, and then from the file we read it in as a buffered image. And then here we just get the width and the height of the image. And then down here are the basics in Chapter 16, where we make a JFrame, which will be our application window. And we set some attributes, like the title is going to be the image name, the size is going to be the width and height of the image, and then when we click our red X button on our window, it's going to actually close our program, is what this is doing. So once we have our base frame, we add the image to the frame by making a JLabel, and then we pass it an image icon using the image that we've read in up here. So then, once we have our image label, we add it to our frame, and then lastly we make sure that our frame is visible. So when I run it right now, it won't work because we don't actually have an image at our path. So, just like when we're reading in from text files, we can go ahead and find an image and then copy and paste that into the root of our project. It's just the same thing. So from here, we want to change path to be glass.jpg, and then now when we run it, it will pop up our JFrame containing the image. Okay, and we will be extending this for the lab on Monday, so it would be a good idea to become at least familiar with the basic stuff on JFrame. So in Chapter 18, they mention command line arguments, which are these args that are passed in to your main function. So the reason for that is, let's say we want this program to work, but beforehand we don't know which image we want to load. So let's use command line arguments as a tool to pass in any image we want when we go to run our program. So rather than hard coding this glass.jpg, let's set that to be the first argument. But we know from working with arrays we can't just blindly start accessing them because we don't know what the size of the array is. So if we go to run this and let's say nothing was passed in as an argument, we'll get an exception because, well, arg sub 0 is out of bounds. So we can handle that by simply checking if args.length is equal to 0. So if there's nothing in args, let's print a message. And we'll say, please supply an image path. Then we'll say, example, Java image, my image. So if someone launches this program incorrectly and they don't supply a file path, let's just go ahead and print that message out and then call system.exit. So you can terminate your program by calling system.exit, and that takes an integer, and what the integer means is it's a code, it's an exit code, usually saying either the program exited correctly or something went wrong. Usually 0 means it was correct, but we don't really care in this case, so we'll just leave it as 0. So now when we go to run our program, we'll get the message and it will terminate, and we won't incorrectly access args because we're done executing our program here. So first I'll demonstrate what this would look like outside of Eclipse, and then I'll show you how to configure Eclipse to actually pass in arguments that you want to specify. So to demonstrate, let me grab our class file and place it here. And this is just our Java file. It hasn't been compiled yet. So let me do that manually real quick. Okay, so I've compiled our image Java class, and you can see it created this image.class file, which is the compiled version. And so now when I go to run our program, I can do that by saying Java, and then I can just say image. And you can see it got our error message because we didn't supply it with any image path. So relative to where our image program is, there's a folder called pictures, and there's a few pictures in here. So to supply an argument, I would just say Java image space and then the argument that I want to pass in. So the argument's going to be the path to the image, which relative to here is going to live in pictures, and then I think that's one of them. And you can see our program ran and launched and opened our picture. And so we can do this in Eclipse as well. So let me get one of the images, the file path. So back in Eclipse, right now again when we run it, there's no arguments supplied. So if you go up here to the drop down menu next to our play button, there's a thing called run configurations. So if we go to run configurations, we'll have all sorts of settings and stuff for when it launches our program. So if you click on the arguments tab, you can supply an argument which will mimic exactly what we just did outside of Eclipse. So now every time we click play, it'll pass in this string, which is the file path. So if we run it now, it will open the picture. And we could go back to run configurations and change that to be one of the other pictures. Apply that, run, and it will open another picture. And that will stay the way it is until you go back and change it again.